Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. I guess it depends where you are. Just give us a minute or two. We're going to start probably about 2 minutes after the hour as we wait for everyone to join. We appreciate you coming on and just bear with us for a minute or two. Good. Welcome, everybody. If you just joined, we're just going to wait about one more minute before we kick things off. Good. Lots of folks coming on. Appreciate it. All right, it's 2 minutes after the hour. I think we are going to get started. Hopefully everyone can see the screen that I'm sharing. Hello. We're here today to talk to you about Microsoft 365 Copilot. As you probably know, it's coming very soon to the US government instance of Microsoft 365. You'll soon have the opportunity to buy licenses and kick the tires and get it in the hands of your users. We hope the CDW can be your partner for both the licensing piece and to help you make sure that your rollout goes smoothly. My name is Al Mackinnon. I'm going to be starting this off, and I'm joined by Mark Rineck and Melissa Priore, and they'll be jumping in a little bit later on as we go through the webinar. I am going to start by launching a poll. Hopefully this is going to work, but we're going to launch a poll. 2 very quick questions about your Copilot experience and Copilot plans, and we'd love to learn a little bit about those 2 things so we can kind of frame and put some things later on in the presentation in context. So I'm going to click the launch button. I'm going to leave that going for a couple minutes as we talk about the agenda. So it should only take you 10 seconds to answer those 2 questions, and we would appreciate that input. So here's our agenda. We're going to talk about very quickly CDW's government experience, and then we're going to dive right into Microsoft 365 Copilot, and then specifically about Copilot in the government community cloud, the US government community cloud. Then I'm going to do a short demo of some Copilot capabilities. Then I'll turn it over to Mark, and Mark is going to talk about CDW success plan and professional services for Microsoft 365 Copilot. And then we'll flip it to Melissa, who will talk about our licensing programs. And then we'll come back as a CDW group. We're going to discuss next steps and resources. And we'll also cover Q&A. In this webinar, you should see a Q&A button at the top of your window. We're going to use that Q&A feature. We'll monitor it. We'll do our best to answer questions. I think we're going to publish the questions when we get answers to them. And then we'll catch up at the end if there were any that we did not get to. And if you don't want to ask a question during the meeting, we're going to send a follow-up survey, and there'll be an opportunity for you to give us a question in there, and then we'll circle back with you and send it out. So that's the agenda. Let's kind of get started. So most of you will know this. Excuse me, as you're on this call, and you're probably already partnering with CDW. But CDW has been focused on state and local government for many years. We have over 250 coworkers dedicated to supporting our SLG customers. We have many contract vehicles, which our SLG customers can leverage for both software and hardware and services. Some are direct with specific states, and others are nationwide. Our Microsoft partnership started with licensing about 25 years ago and has grown to include very extensive service capabilities. We carry, and I know the graphics are a little small, but we carry all 6 of Microsoft Solution Partner designations. We have lots of advanced specializations under each of those designations. Every one of those designations and specializations requires us to have certified staff and proven customer success stories that Microsoft vets for us. We have a little over 150 delivery engineers in our Microsoft practice. A lot of experience there, so our bench is both very wide and very deep. In 2023, we worked on Microsoft projects for over 500 unique state and local government customers. So if you're not a member of that list, we hope that you will be in 2024 or 2025. And if you're already a customer, we appreciate that trust. So I'm going to, gosh, I guess I have to answer the poll before it'll let me clear it. I'm going to close the poll. Okay, so just looking at the results real quick, it looked like about half of the audience was somewhat familiar with Copilot, but almost 40% is not familiar with at all. So we are going to start out with some basics about what Copilot is and how it works, and then we'll dive a little deeper as we go along. The second question was what your plans might be, your organization's plans might be, and 47% said you plan to integrate it into your daily workflows. But also 24%, oh gosh, and I clicked that one too, have no plans to use it at this time. And then another 29% said they have considering it. So about half have plans to use it, and about half are either on the fence or don't have plans to use it. So that's fairly consistent with what we've seen, especially at this early stage in availability for government, U.S. government customers. So thank you for that input. All right, so we're here today to talk about Microsoft Copilot. Copilot is a brand name. It's basically Microsoft's generative AI solutions being built into a lot of their products. If you're not sure what generative AI is, it's a category of artificial intelligence that generates content in response to inputs, typically natural language inputs. So you ask it to create a paragraph, and it does it. You ask it to create a document, and it does it. You ask it to create an image, and it can do it. Obviously, those are just a few examples, and we're going to talk about some others coming up, and I'm going to show you some in the demo portion. This wheel really represents and illustrates the extent of those Microsoft integrations. Starting in the middle of the ring is the brand name Copilot, and Microsoft is building AI into their developer tools with things like GitHub and Power Platform and Visual Studio, into their business applications like Dynamics 365, into their search solutions, into the browser, into their data and analytics solutions like Power BI. And what we're going to spend our time on today is the modern work integration. So that's into the solutions like Microsoft 365 and what we most commonly call the Office applications. I wanted to review this slide because there may be some confusion over naming. I think, I don't know, we're on our fourth different rebranding of the name of the product. So there can be some confusion. So I thought we could level set with the various Copilots that may be available to you. So hopefully this helps. So we started out with Bing Chat, and that was renamed to Copilot. This is the consumer product for personal use. It's the first column on the left. That's free to everyone. You just go to bing.com and you click the Copilot button, and it gives you a new way to search for information and find information. Copilot with enterprise data protection, the middle column, that was originally called Bing Chat Enterprise. It's included with most paid plans of Office 365 or Microsoft 365. You go to bing.com, you click on Copilot, and you have the opportunity to log in with your Entra ID account, your organizational ID. Enterprise data protection means that Microsoft does not retain your prompts and does not use the prompts or the results of the prompts to train the models. Anything you do in regular Copilot, because that's on public Bing, they're going to take the information that you input and the results and your feedback on those results, and they're going to use that to train the large language models that are behind the service. But the Copilot with enterprise data protection that you're using once you authenticate with your Entra ID account, Microsoft says that they are not going to retain those prompts. They're not going to retain the results of those prompts. They're not going to use them to train the models. And all the processing for Copilot with enterprise data protection takes place within the Microsoft 365 data center boundaries. So you have all of Microsoft's privacy and security protections that you do for the rest of your Microsoft 365 workloads. We're going to talk about how Copilot works in just a little bit as well. So once you log on with your Entra ID credentials, you have that safe place where your data and your prompts are protected. You can use Copilot to find answers, to create content like emails and even pictures. But once you get results, you have to copy those results over to the program where you want to use it. So you can use Copilot to draft an email, but then you've got to copy that content and go to Outlook and paste it into a new email. The column on the far right is Copilot for Microsoft 365, or actually, I'm sorry, Microsoft 365 Copilot. I knew I would miss it in here once. That's where we're mainly focused on today. It's a per user add-on subscription to your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscriptions. You can see the major differences in the far right columns where Copilot is integrated with your Office application. So it's integrated with Teams and Outlook and Excel and PowerPoint and Word, and regular Copilot or Copilot with enterprise data protection do not. So you can ask Copilot about your email, your files, your meetings, because it's also integrated with the tenant, has access to data within Microsoft 365. One thing I like to point out to customers, though, is that even if you don't have Copilot for Microsoft 365 now, you don't have that paid subscription, and you're not sure when you're going to get it, you can still start with the Copilot with enterprise data protection and get your users used to writing prompts and writing effective prompts, because half the challenge of being successful with Copilot is knowing how to write a good prompt, knowing what questions to ask to get the best results. With Copilot for Microsoft 365, you have a powerful, trusted AI assistant that works seamlessly to integrate all your data across your various devices and services. It harnesses the capabilities of the latest large language models like GPT-4 Turbo, and it combines it with data from your web activity, Microsoft Graph, which is also known as work grounding, and the productivity applications that you use every day like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams. I will note that Microsoft 365 Copilot in the US government cloud is going to ship with the web grounding disabled, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. On the far right, Copilot Studio is a tool that you can use to easily build your own custom Copilots or extend Copilot for Microsoft 365 to leverage data from over 1,200 plugins, including Adobe, SAP, Workday, ServiceNow, and more. Another disclaimer is that you, as the customer, have to decide if making those connections to those external sources risks your compliance status. So it's just something you have to make that decision on your own. And all of this, all of these capabilities are safeguarded by Microsoft's comprehensive security. You can trust Copilot with Microsoft 365 because it respects your organizational security, governance, privacy, and compliance controls that you've already got in place. Copilot can only give you answers from sources that you have access and permissions to. An interaction is tracked and it can be audited. Microsoft does not retain your prompts, as I talked about, or responses, and nor do they use them to train the model. So it is an enterprise-ready solution. This slide shows how Copilot works, and I know there's a lot going on here, but it does I'm going to walk through the logical flow of how Microsoft 365 Copilot works. One important takeaway is that, again, Copilot processing takes place inside the boundaries of the Microsoft 365 service. So everything it does and touches follows the security, privacy, and compliance that the rest of your Microsoft 365 tenant and overall service has. So if we start in the upper left, excuse me, your prompt goes into Copilot from whatever input location is, and we'll learn more about that. Your prompt goes into Copilot where it gets pre-grounded against your compliance policies and your tenant. Then that modified prompt goes to the large language model running in Azure OpenAI, which is also running inside the boundary. So all that purple is inside the M365 boundary. The results go back to Microsoft 365 where they're again reviewed through post-processing. And finally, the response is sent to the user. If you have integrated, if you've allowed for the web grounding or integrated Copilot with sources outside of Microsoft 365, that will happen as well. So the pre and post processing, known as grounding, is how Microsoft reduces the chances of AI providing bad information back to you. And of course, you always want to review that the results to make sure that it's appropriate before you share it out, just as you would with any other AI tool that you might want to use. So feedback from early Microsoft Copilot users has been extremely positive, right? So 75% said Copilot made them more productive. 68% say Copilot improves the quality of their work. And I can't tell you how many times I have highlighted a paragraph in an email or a document and asked Copilot to rewrite it for me to make it more or less formal, to make it more clear, and so on. And then I get to review that output and decide if I want to keep it or not. And it's made me a better writer. People reported being 30% faster at creating documents. So we kind of call this issue solving the empty page, right? I got to get started on this project. I'm staring at Word. I'm staring at PowerPoint. How do I get started? With Copilot, I'm going to show you how I can use it to brainstorm and how to draft documents and get you started quickly to make you more productive. It can also make you up to 4 times faster on catching up to meetings. Again, I use this all the time. Most people that you ask will tell you it's one of their favorite features. If I miss a meeting, I can open up a recording and I can ask questions of the content or see AI generated notes without having to watch the whole thing. And I'll show you that in the demo. And then I can tell you also that our own internal research with CDW's own early adopters has shown that users are saving between 30 and 45 minutes a day by leveraging Microsoft 365. And that aligns almost perfectly with Microsoft's statistic of about 10 hours per month that folks are saving. So when we talk about Microsoft 365 Copilot, it's the natural language generative AI capabilities built into those productivity applications. So in Word and PowerPoint, it can create or refine documents or create summaries of long ones. In Outlook, you can summarize email threads, draft emails, or get coaching on ones you write. You've probably all been added at the end of a long email thread, and you have to scroll all the way to the bottom and read your way up from the bottom to see what's really going on and what the ask is from this thread. Now there's a button at the top that has, says summarize with Copilot, and it'll use AI to go through that whole string and give you the top points of what's going on in that entire thread. It has a potential to save you a ton of time, and it's very effective. In Excel, you can have Copilot write your formulas, do conditional formatting, find insights, create your own pivot tables and charts. In Loop and Whiteboard, use Copilot to jumpstart brainstorming sessions. In Teams, get meeting summaries or summarize your own meetings and share those summaries with folks. Ask questions during and after the meetings about what occurred. And then last thing is Microsoft 365 Chat. They're rebranding that as Business Chat or Biz Chat now. But that is the one solution that can reason over all your data in Microsoft 365. So in that Microsoft 365 Chat, you can ask questions about your calendar, your email, your contacts, your chats, the SharePoint content, whatever. It has access to the things that you have access to in Microsoft 365, and I'll show you that real quickly in the demo as well. Now, for the U.S. government cloud, Microsoft 365 Copilot is being released in two phases. The first phase is imminent. Now they're saying Q4 2024, which we're in Q4. And that includes a lot of high value features. So the business chat that I just talked about, the application integration that I just talked about, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams, and then Teams Intelligent Meeting Recap. Phase 2 is targeted for the first quarter of 2025, and that includes Teams Meeting Copilot, integration with OneNote, Stream, Planner, OneDrive, and Loop. And just real quick, right? So intelligent meeting recap is when you can get a summary of a meeting that was recorded or transcribed. So post meeting integration of AI, so you can go and ask questions. I'm going to show you that in the demo. The Teams Meeting Copilot that is in phase 2 is the ability to query and interact with a meeting in real time. For example, you show up 10 minutes late. Copilot actually prompts you and says, looks like you're late to this meeting. Would you like Copilot to give you a summary of what you missed? Or you can just say, Copilot, what did I miss? Or has my name been mentioned? Or what decisions have been made in the 10 minutes that I missed? And then before you hang up on the meeting, before you leave the meeting, you can even have Copilot create meeting notes at the end. Even if the meeting wasn't recorded, you can get Copilot to give you meeting notes for the portion of the meeting that you were in and Copilot was enabled for. As I mentioned before, Copilot works within the boundaries of Microsoft 365, and that for the Government Community Cloud. It is also delivered with web grounding off by default. This means that your prompts and queries will not have answers augmented by Bing. So the advantage to that is that your tenant boundary remains intact. The disadvantage is that you don't get information from Bing, which might be the latest information from the internet. So you're limited to what the large language model was aware of when it was trained. So most of them will be a few months old, so it wouldn't have the latest, greatest information. But again, you have to consider the implications of enabling that and make your own decisions, but it will be off by default. There are plenty of use cases for government customers, and hopefully a lot of you are already, have some in mind. But here are just a few examples. So for policy analysis, it can review data to help with decision making. For instance, a public health organization could use Copilot to analyze public health trends, draft policy recommendations, respond to emerging issues more quickly. For citizen services, you can improve your responses to citizen inquiries in both time and in quality. Copilot can help draft personalized responses or create FAQs with common questions about your things on your website, like government services or permits or regulations. And in phase 2, you'll be able to compare multiple documents and get a quick summary of the differences. And if you can imagine using that to review policy proposals or legislative proposals. And then agents and bots using Copilot Studio will also play a huge role in citizen services for most customers. For resource allocation, you can use Copilot for budget and resource planning. So use Copilot inside of Excel to do relatively complex budget scenario analysis, generate easy to understand reports, and see insights from data that you may not be able to write a formula for, but you can ask Copilot to pull that data for you. From a project management perspective, create project timelines, assign tasks, generate progress reports, just to keep things on track, and then using it to create meeting summaries, project meeting summaries, and sending those summaries out to the attendees and to people that miss the meetings is huge. And then finally, training and knowledge sharing. Use Copilot to create training materials, again, FAQs, knowledge bases, making sure that your folks can stay up to date on latest procedures, latest policies, latest regulations, and so on. So I am going to skip out of the presentation here. I'm going to try to show you 5 cool things in about 10 minutes, and we're going to see if the demo gods will be kind to me. So let me escape out of the presentation and start with, yeah, so in this demo, I'm going to pretend that I am a employee of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. I'm a resident of PA. So I'm part of PennDOT, and I got 4 things on my to-do list today. So let's get started with those 4 things. So this is a new bill. I know it says 2023, but it recently passed, and it relates to driver safety. So this lands on my desk. I've got to summarize this for my teammates, and I've got to create a press release about it. So it seems kind of daunting, but here comes Copilot. So I'm in Word. There's Copilot up on my menu. I'm going to click on Copilot. And you can see the text is a little confusing and maybe hard to read. So I'm going to ask Copilot. Actually, I don't even need to ask. I get some suggested prompts. Summarize this document, where that says I'm saving time, not even having to type. Now I have this summary, and I can just grab that. And notice there are little citations. It's telling me where in the document it's pulling this information from. So I know where it, I can see, okay, you didn't just make it up, you pulled it from the text. So I can then copy that and paste it into Outlook as an email and send it out to my team. The second thing, and I get options like, do I want to make it more formal? Do I want to make it more casual? I can continue to ask questions about the document and query the document. But the next thing I need to do is create that press release. So in order to do that, I'm going to start with a new Word document. And I'm going to click on the Copilot button that's within the document itself. And I'm going to ask Copilot, I'm going to give it a prompt. I'm going to cheat and paste it in here because I can't type and talk at the same time. So you're an employee of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. I'm giving Copilot some context. I want you to pretend to be this person and do my job for me. Compose a press release about something, promoting how it will make our roads safer. So I put that little underscore in there to tell me where to put it. But I can either reference a file by clicking on this, or I can just hit the /, and it brings up like 3 of the documents that I have opened recently. And so here's the PA SB 37 full text. That's what I was just looking at. I'm going to choose generate. And here's my press release. And it's done. So I've got a 2-page press release. You do have the option to regenerate. And it's interesting because every time I tested this out, and every time I regenerate, it comes out a little bit differently. So it's kind of interesting for that. And I can see the prompt that I used to get this, and I can even copy it if I liked it. I'm going to choose keep it. We'll scroll up, and here's a press release from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. Paul Miller's Law is the name of that law. Key provisions, benefits to road safety, implementation timeline, and then some contact information that I could plug in. So this may not be perfect, but I've got the draft. I've solved that empty page problem. I've got a draft, and I've already checked 2 things off of my to-do list. So the next thing I want to do, let me run over here and grab Teams and yank it over to my desktop. The next thing, I need to catch up on a meeting that I missed the other day. So it was recorded, luckily, but I don't have time to watch the whole thing. I got all this stuff on my to-do list. So I'm going to go to Teams. I go to the Meet location. I could go on my calendar and browse for the meeting, but I can go to the Meet app and click on recorded, and I can see the meetings that were recorded. And I'm going to use this one. This was an enablement session for my team that we did last week, and it's recorded. So I'm going to click on this option to view the recap. So here's the meeting recording. This was it's not a PennDOT specific one. It's just one that doesn't have any sensitive CDW stuff in it. But I've got the recording, and then I've got this information at the bottom where I have the list of the speakers. So Ben Derry from Quest did most of the speaking. I can see who did most of the speaking. I did some, Chuck, Josh, so some other people talked. And if I click on when they were speaking, it'll take me right to that area of the video. Copilot also automatically created topics. So I didn't do this. Nobody else did this. It just artificial intelligence did this and created these topics. And if those topics appear in multiple places and I click on that, it'll give me the times where those topics are discussed. and I could click on one, it would take me directly to that spot. It also automatically created these chapters for me where it divided up the meeting into about, well, some of them are 2, 3, 7 minutes of where different things were discussed, and I can quickly go to those parts of the meeting that I might be most interested in. Then over here, I've got AI generated notes. So this is that intelligent recap that I talked about. These are notes taken by Copilot and summarized from the transcript and from the recording. And it also integrates anything that was included in the chat as people were chatting during the meeting. But I've got information, here's what was covered, and some of these you can expand to see a little bit more detail, all the way down to where I've got the summary of everything that was done. And then I've got a list of follow-up tasks. So Copilot even paid enough attention to where it listened, and if anybody mentioned a task or something that needed to be done, or somebody specifically says, I'll follow up on that, or I'll get that answer, it gives us that list of what those things are, and even says who is going to do them, if it can capture that. So I've got now, I can either quickly go to the pieces that I'm interested in. I can quickly read these notes. I don't have to watch the whole hour-long meeting, and I'm ready to go. But I do want to find out, I'm going to use Copilot up here because I can ask questions of things, and you're going to see some other questions because I had to practice this a few times. But I want to know, like, did Brian ask any questions? So Brian's a teammate of mine. Ask any questions. Brian's a teammate of mine. We work closely together. I want to see what he was interested in, if he asked any questions. Let's see, he already answered it once. Couldn't figure out how to clear this, so you're seeing behind the curtains. So yes, Brian asked a question during the meeting. He inquired about support for GCC High and GCC and when those things would be supported. So good. Now, I actually am very interested in that as well. So I want to follow up with Brian and catch up on that topic. So I'm now going to skip over to chat, and up at the top is the Copilot. This is the Microsoft 365 chat, now called Business Chat. And this is where I can ask questions. It gives me some example prompts that I can use. It gives me the history, because remember, we're now in enterprise. Well, we're now in Teams, so it'll record those and I can go back to them. But I'm going to see, do I have any upcoming meetings with, gosh, I should have pasted this as well, Brian Lyncher. So I need to talk to Brian, but let me see if I have any meetings on the books with him already, so I don't have to schedule something. We're already pretty busy. And this is showing me, you know, holy cow, I got 10 meetings where both Brian and I are invited to. So I can look at this and I can say, all right, well, I'm going to have plenty of opportunities to talk to Brian. I don't need to schedule a separate meeting with him. So I managed to accomplish that as well. So I knocked another thing off my to-do list. The next thing I want to do is, if I can find my browser, where are you? Here it is. I'm in charge of putting together a public relations campaign for traffic safety, and we're going to roll it out following this new legislation and the press release. And I need to brainstorm on ideas that I might want to use. And I want to be ready for this meeting that I have coming up with a few other people. I want to show up with some ideas so we have something to get started with. And I love the whiteboard app for doing this. And I'm going to create a new whiteboard. And here's Copilot at the bottom. Got a blank screen here. I'm going to ask Copilot to suggest ideas to improve traffic and driver safety that could be used in a public relations campaign. And I got 6 ideas. All right, well, I'm going to click generate more because I want to appear to be very smart. And 12, that's good. I'm going to get a few more. 18, that seems like a good number to start with. So I'm going to insert those, and I've got a nice set of sticky notes that I can use, but I'm not done yet because I'm going to ask Copilot to automatically categorize these things for me. So I clicked on the categorize button and I take a deep breath or a sip of coffee, and now I've got those sticky notes are now categorized into 4 things: drive behavior, law enforcement, infrastructure, public awareness, and made them different colors, and I'm ready to go. So when I show up at my meeting with the team, I've got, 18 ideas, or 18 ideas that we can start with, and I've already got categories. And Copilot did this for me in, what was that, 30 seconds, 40 seconds? So good stuff. Great brainstorming capabilities inside of the Whiteboard app with Copilot. And the last thing I'm going to do is show you some things in Excel. So my last task for the day is to analyze some information about road projects that we've done this year. So I've got a table of information with project IDs and titles and descriptions and status and total and county. Well, it looks like this total is a dollar amount. So here's Copilot in Excel. Comes out in a little pane. Gives me some options I can choose here, but I'm going to put one in here, and I'm going to ask Copilot to format the total column as US dollars. That's the easy one. But it says here I can apply the currency format and auto fit the columns and apply it. Yes, that's what I wanted. And now I've got my dollar range in there. Next thing I'm curious about, because I have these counties here, which county has the most projects with the status completed? So here's the status column, and I've got all these different options. I could filter them individually and count the rows. That sounds like a lot of work. So which county has the most projects with the status completed? Maybe we want to highlight that in a press release or some kind. So we'll give that a moment. And it looks like the county with the most projects completed is Allegheny with 204 projects. And it does give me the option of adding a table to another sheet, but I was just looking for that answer. I'm happy with that. The other thing I'm curious about is in the description, how many descriptions included the word tunnel in the description? And I guess that you could filter that. That's not too hard either, but I'm going to see what Copilot does. Okay, there are 15 descriptions that include the word tunnel. And I think up here, yeah, so it creates a table. And again, I can insert that on another tab if I need it, but I don't. But that was so easy stuff so far, but fun. I'm better at text queries, natural language, than I am at writing formulas. So the last thing I want to do is create a pivot table. I want to be able to sort this data by county and by project status. So create a pivot table with columns showing status and rows showing counties, show the total count of projects in each status for each county. And I'll hit the go button. And there's the pivot table. It looks like what I'm after, so I can add it to a new sheet. And here's my pivot table. So here's the county, the status completed for a year. There's a different status, the number under each category, and then the grand total. And that's exactly what I was looking for. And now I've got my pivot table ready to go. So that was the demo. Those were the things I want to show you. I don't know if that was 10 minutes. I think it was pretty close. So I'm going to put this, let me get this back, get the presentation back. Hold on. Good, that worked. All right, so in that demo, I was able to do the following things, right? I quickly summarized a long document so I could email that summary to my team. Then I created a draft press release based on that legislation. Then I caught up on a meeting that I missed by reviewing the Copilot generated notes. Then I kicked off my brainstorming for a public relations campaign. And then I performed some analysis on data in an Excel spreadsheet. And I was so productive that I'm going to take a long lunch today. But in the meantime, I think, Mark, are you ready?
I am. I'm ready to go, Al.
All right. I'm going to advance the slide and
build that out a little bit.
Go ahead, Mark.
All right. Sounds great. Hey, everybody. Glad to be here this afternoon with you. My name is Mark. I am product manager for our Microsoft Modern Work services. So I'm really excited to talk to you about the things that we've developed to help you get ready for Copilot, deploy it, get your folks using it productively, all the great things that we'd love to help you do. So I think the thing that you're seeing here first is about half of you said that you were starting out on this journey. Maybe another half said we're somewhere in the middle as far as being ready to go. From what we have from a services perspective, really we can encapsulate both of those needs. So if you're in the half of the folks that's saying, yep, we're just starting out, we're formulating what we'd like to do for Copilot, we are planning to justify the ROI for it, we want to understand what's involved before we start getting in and deploying. We have a couple of things from the business case strategy perspective to help you out to get Copilot to fit in your AI strategy. So that's the first place. And then as we go along with preparing for the environment, planning for success, rolling it out, really getting that work in terms of planning, getting your adoption and change management ready, getting your data protection, your security, especially. I'm sure that's on a few folks' mind as they're looking at Copilot. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then finally, of course, getting it into the hands of your end users, making sure that they have the support they need to use it effectively, to use it in their job role, especially. We hear that a lot. So really a comprehensive treatment that says, what are the different things, some of them technology, some of them training, some of them end user, that says, how do we create success with Copilot? And then finally, kind of at the end of the journey, where if that's the particular place that you want to start, looking at how you can extend Copilot, as Al had mentioned, things like chatbots or different data sources, or making a little bit more targeted, extensive use of the data, especially SharePoint Online, that you have in Microsoft 365. So when you're ready for that step, we have services for you there too. If you want to build out a little bit, Al, we'll talk specifically about some of those. I'm going to talk about these more specificity in a minute here. So if you're starting out on the business case, the strategy side, there's a couple of things that we recommend for that. First, I'd like to say our vision and value workshop. We have done that with an extensive number of customers in the commercial space, and we're excited to get started doing that with you in the government space. Effectively a service that gives us a couple days really advisory with our trusted advisors, our consulting engineers, to help you formulate some of those first steps to get ready for either your first purchase of Copilot or some of that strategy about how you're going to use it. We'll talk about that in a second. And then, of course, once you get to that part where you're ready to do some deployment or planning or adoption, our deployment accelerator, which really we have strived to put the right elements in there that will get you to a successful pilot of somewhere up to 50 users or so to get that first step going on. We'll also talk a little bit about those security and data protection services as well. I'm sure that's on a number of folks' mind. So Al, if you want to click to the next slide. For me. We're going to talk about some of those in a little bit more detail. As you can see here, our vision and value, really a couple days, about $7,500. From time to time, Microsoft funds these engagements, so we'd be glad to check that eligibility with you and take a look at that and see if that is part of it. Or if we just want to get started with it, that's fine too, of course. But really some of those things are to the possible, which is a little bit more of Al was giving you a taste of what that looked like. We do a little bit more of that to say, okay, what matters for Copilot? How does it impact the services, the government services that you're offering? What are some of the possibilities there to get that imagination going? We do a value discovery workshop, which is a kind of fancy name for an ROI exercise as part of that. Certainly, we'll talk about this in a second as well. Copilot, as you saw, was $30 a user a month. Not necessarily inexpensive, but can really provide some of that ROI, especially if your people are using it. So we want to set the stage for how you're going to have that conversation. It's going to be an important one. And then, of course, some high-level planning, and at the end, a roadmap that you can use high level to chart out the things you need to pay attention to, things you need to really focus on for success that apply to your organization and where you're at. So great starting point for that. If we're talking about Deployment Accelerator a little bit, really an expansion on where that goes, really, again, to get that pilot done of about 50 people or so with adoption activities to help them really absorb what's going on with Copilot, help you talk to your line of business folks or departments, maybe in a government sense, talk about that, and do some of the little bit more extended technical readiness planning. So as Al had mentioned when he had shown you the slide about how Copilot protects data earlier on, really the good news there is that a lot of the control plane that you're going to use to govern what Copilot does is going to be available in G3 or G5. That's really the mechanism that, again, you're controlling your own data using things like SharePoint settings, things like maybe sensitivity labels from Purview. Certainly, I think in a government sense, it would be not a shock if we were talking about data retention and protection that way. So all of those things are really in the platform, and we're really helping you apply them in the context of what Copilot is doing. So, very, very important. I think one of the things with Deployment Accelerator that we try to do is really offer you a balance. And this is something that we've learned from our commercial customers over the last year or so, is trying to balance that need to really show people actively using, really getting benefit out of Copilot, while sort of simultaneously at the same time and in a parallel sense, taking care of the data protection side and beefing up your security posture, what have you inside the tenant, to really work on those tracks together, and kind of in a crawl, walk, run type sense for them. So that's Deployment Accelerator. Again, a conversation we'd love to have with you. Sit down, figure out the needs that you have in your particular situation, in your environment, what sort of needs to get shored up, what needs to get prepared, and how we're going to get your folks to productively use Copilot. If you're beyond that, or you're looking to already getting into, you want to create things like chatbots, Copilot Studio has caught your interest in terms of what it can do, potentially targeting some of the information that you have in Microsoft 365 that we have there, extending to external sources. You're concerned about that. We have a prototype service there, and also some other things that we can do that will help you frame up what Copilot Studio is capable of doing. So those are, I would really say, the Copilot related services. Those are the core of it. As I mentioned, there are some things that where we can extend, and what you're seeing here on the screen is really just, I would say, kind of scratching the surface in terms of the services and the extent that we can help you here. So if you're not seeing it directly on screen, don't be afraid to ask about it. Contact us, and certainly we'll talk a little bit more about it. If you're thinking, maybe now is a good time because Copilot is using tenant controls as its control plane for Copilot, maybe it's a good idea to take a look at security posture again. If it's been a little bit of a time period there, if you're looking and trying to understand, did we really get everything? It's a great place to start looking at our assessment for 365 security. Not just Copilot, obviously, but a pretty good treatment of what's going on inside your tenant. If you're thinking more about data protection, our data governance with Microsoft Purview is a great way to do that. If you're thinking about retention or potentially using sensitivity labels for what Copilot can see and what it can't. If DLP is something that you said, we were getting around to that, but we haven't quite got there yet. We think Copilot's a great time to do that. We cover that as well in terms of that. Or if, for example, Intune and enhancing your mobility posture, mobility strategy is part of it. That is certainly another popular adjacent thing to do with Copilot. So in all of these cases, I know that we get this question frequently. Do we have to have G5 to do this, right? If we don't have G5, is it even worth talking about? It's definitely worth talking about. It's great. G5 offers a lot of security and compliance capabilities beyond what G3 does, but there's potential with both. So don't let that stop you. Let's have the conversation about what you need to do in this area. So I think that's what I have, Al. I think in our next, we'll probably hear from Melissa.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. And hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. I promise I will be quick. I definitely am one of the presenters that is not showing you the latest and greatest tools. So Al and Mark, amazing stuff there. But I did want to let everyone know that recently at CDW, we have started to offer the GCC catalog of M365 through our CSP program. So a CSP program is a way for customers to get their Microsoft Solutions 365 as well as Azure. And instead of going through your traditional EA agreement, that I know many customers are familiar with, you are able to get those solutions directly from CDW. So what does that mean to purchase your solutions through our CSP program? Well, for starters, the billing is going to come directly from CDW. You can utilize a credit card or you can use our terms. The biggest thing that a lot of our customers love is the fact that we are your first line of support. So if you have a break fix issue, you call CDW directly instead of going to Microsoft. For 365, our support is 24/7, 365 US based. CDW badged engineers, they cover tiers 1 through 3 of support. I do want to mention that our support for 365, we have a 98% resolution rate before ever needing to escalate to Microsoft. So that's not 2% of cases that don't ever get closed and resolved. That is the amount of cases that we ever need Microsoft's assistance with touching, usually because there is a security scenario in which only Microsoft can access it. We also have self-service tools within CDW.com, which we have branded as Ruby, and that allows you to manage your 365 subscriptions, your renewal dates. You can co-term your subscriptions and upgrade and overall have a better understanding of the entire portfolio that you have. You can also use the self-service tool to change your billing methods, change contacts, and we've made a lot of improvements on the functionalities over the past year to align with the features Microsoft has provided through their new commerce experience. All CSP customers also get our tool of Inscape. Inscape is a cloud management platform for 365 as well as Azure. It provides you with reporting tools. It provides you with a view of your consumption. But one of the things that I think is the most important in relation to what we saw today is that Inscape also comes with unlimited end user training for everyone in your organization on 365 solutions. That does include Copilot. So if you're feeling a little unsure about what Copilot adoption could look like in your organization, Inscape has the tools to allow you to implement drip trainings, modules to all of your users to understand, how do I use Copilot? So definitely something that we are really, happy is built within this platform. Also, for CSP customers, there are exclusive service add-ons that you can only get if you are a CSP customer. We have unlimited backup and restore. We have migration assistance, and we also have enhanced onboarding. So Mark was talking there about, moving to G5. Maybe you're not ready to do that just yet, but if you need any assistance with that, we do have those enhanced onboardings surrounding those E5 features that will make you a whole lot more comfortable. One more thing back on the billing piece. For CSP, it is the one agreement that Microsoft does offer annual and monthly commitments. So you can commit to a certain amount of licenses for just a month at a time. There's also no minimums to purchase through CSP. And there is, for our annual commitment customers, there is the option of monthly billing. So it really is the most flexible way to get your Microsoft solutions while getting your support from CDW and all the other values that we have to bring. So that's all for me. So I will turn it back to Al.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. So this is it. I thought pretty good timing. Appreciate everyone hanging on as long as you have. The next steps, we will be sending out a follow-up survey. We sure would appreciate your feedback. There'll be an opportunity there for you to ask questions, to ask for your CDW account team to reach out to you. But if you want to be proactive and schedule time to talk about Microsoft 365 Copilot and how CDW can help you with that, please reach out to your CDW account team. There are several resources, some specific to state and local government. I know you can't click on them from the PowerPoint, so we're going to include these links in our follow-up email to everyone that registered. This meeting is going to be recorded. I believe we're going to share the recording and the presentation somewhere very soon. Maybe in the follow-up email, we'll have links to those things. I don't see any unanswered questions in the Q&A. I'm disappointed. I thought there would be a lot more questions. I guess we're doing a good job. But very good. That's all the content that we had for everyone. We want to thank you. Thank you for coming, and thank you for giving us this time. And we hope the information was valuable, and we hope you give CDW the opportunity to work with you on Copilot when it becomes available any day now. Thanks very much.